and kick off. So Chris was going to be on with us. He, I assume, is rebooting his machine. We'll log back in. So first of all, welcome everybody to our session today. We're going to go about an hour, and we're going to talk about this idea of this demographic shift that's taking place and how firms can go mobile, or actually teach their customers to go mobile. And so the title is Go Mobile or Stay Home. So our goals today are going to be, Christy, if you can go ahead and advance one. Our goals today are going to be, we're going to talk really about four things. One, first point I want to spend some time talking about today will be understanding what it means, what it really means to run your financial life from your mobile device. It'd be interesting to see what kind of questions we may get out of this. Second, we're going to talk about some of the mobile tools your clients should know about right now and be using. Third, I want to talk to you about how you can then educate your customers to adopt the mobile strategies that you know they should be implementing. And then lastly, I want to show you how Lizio will help make communicating via mobile a better overall client experience. So with that in mind, I think I'm ready to kick off. Before we do, Christy, you want to do a first polling question? We'll see how that goes. You're on mute, Christy, if you're saying anything.
Yep, so the poll is live, so you should all see it. The first question, what percentage of your client base is made up of baby boomers?
That'd be interesting. I don't know if everybody will, if all of you will actually know the answer to that. I'm trying to think what ours would even be. Be interesting to see how this comes out. All right, Christy, you have enough time yet?
Yeah, I think that's good. I'll end the poll. Everyone should see the results.
How'd it come out? I don't know that I see them.
So it looks like about 47% believe that 30 to 50% of their firm is made up of baby boomers, which is high.
About half of our listeners believe 30 to 50% are made up of baby boomers.
Correct.
You know what makes sense to me, Christy, is that number is only going to go up. You know, with more baby boomers in the workplace right now than any other demographic, that number has to continue to increase. So, all right, well, let's kick off with actually topic number one, this whole idea that what it means really. Hey, Chris is back. Can you hear us okay, Chris?
Pardon me, just the technical Wi-Fi failure over here. So I am here though.
I think you had a catastrophic 2 p.m. Eastern time failure.
Right on the dot. Right on the dot.
I did a quick introduction, Chris, and we talked about the 4 points that we're going to discuss today. And then we did our first polling question. The way the polling question came out is about half of our audience listening believe 30 to 50% of their customers are baby boomers today, which is interesting because we know that number is only going to increase, but that's still a significant percentage of your customers. So we're ready to kick off on topic number one, Chris, which is understanding what it means to run your financial life from your mobile device. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but I'll hop in as soon as you maybe get a chance to maybe add to that a little bit.
That's fantastic. I think absolutely. I think running the financial life from mobile device is obviously very much on top of just about everybody we're talking to, on top of their mind. And there's been a lot of interesting information continue to come out on the mobile front. I think yesterday we saw AT&T roll out their 5G network. They put out pricing, they put out timing and locations. And imagine this, I'm actually running everything right now, not on my corporate Wi-Fi, but rather on the mobile device right now. And that's how all this is working. But 5G promises to be, I think, between 10 and 40 times faster, right? So just the power of all this is really continuing to accelerate, which is pretty impressive. So looking forward to hearing more about the mobile front.
Have you taken advantage of 5G at all, or is that available? I think Verizon's got 5G in Indianapolis now too, but I don't know that I've experienced it. I have the iPhone 10 Max, but I'm assuming can I take advantage of it on an iPhone 10 Max?
I know you can once it's out. I think most areas haven't seen it. I don't think there's much deployment yet, but I think everybody's been laying plans and putting in the infrastructure. And I think in 2019, most of us will be able to get it where we are. So
Yeah,
I think,
Indianapolis was Verizon's test site, one of three, and so Indianapolis definitely has it now. I just haven't paid attention. I'll be up there on Friday, so it'll be interesting to see what it's like. So let's talk about what it means to run your financial life on your mobile device. So I took essentially a screen grab of my mobile device and sort of the way I run my financial life today. And everything in my world, my financial world, is largely illustrated right here on this screen. So in the mornings, I can get up in the house and I can click on Chase because we do all of our banking on Chase. I can sort of look at some transactions, check our balances, see that there's no fraud in the account. And before I even leave the house, I've looked at my bank account. I can check what my investments were the day before. I don't have a piece of paper, Chris, in my personal life. I really, really do not. You've been at my house and my office. It's just, I'm not a paper guy. I want everything available to me. And I use Google Drive to keep all of that. My assistant's connected to my Google Drive, so everything that comes in for me, she digitizes. Everything I have, I digitize, have access to everything. Life insurance policies, real estate documents, paid bills, you name it, tax returns, all in Google Drive for me. I communicate with my clients through Lizio. So if I want to communicate back and forth from a customer perspective to the office, I use Lizio for that. We use QuickBooks Online for all of our transactions. I can see what we collected yesterday. I can see what our financial information is. Again, all from my iPhone 10 Max. We made a transition to ADP inside of our firm, probably a bit over a year ago. So all of our paychecks are available, again, right on my mobile device. I can approve bills using bill.com. So I'm one of the approvers. So bills are right at my thumb. And then submit expense reports for reimbursement, if that's the case. So really, when you think about that, Chris, everything in my sort of personal financial world is in this little folder that I call finance. I could just as easily call that Root Advisors for our accounting firm and run my life. How much of that do you do?
I do it just about everything. I can't remember the last time I went and paid a credit card bill, for example, in a browser. I just do everything from a mobile device. I think it's the big buttons. It's really easy. They've really kind of taken all the friction out of it and made it more or less one click. So if I think about it, the phone's already in my pocket or in my hand. I can do a couple taps and I'm done rather than having to go through the whole browser experience. It just is simpler. There are fewer touches. And I think, at least for me, it feels like everything that I do in my personal world, as a consumer, I guess you'd say, that created all these habits that when I get the opportunity to do them in my professional life, those professional software acts the way I work in my consumer world. It's just very natural. So I think that's something I've noticed in my habits.
I don't know about you, but if there's not a good mobile experience tied to the tool or the technology I'm looking to use, I immediately sort of eject that from my thought process.
I feel that. I was a big QuickBooks desktop guy forever, right? And I kind of stuck with that. And then, we use QuickBooks. So when I get on QuickBooks Online, I do everything on my mobile device. Totally different experience. It really kind of changed my thinking. It took some time, but I really like where things are at now.
I don't like to throw all the millennials in a bucket because I'm definitely not a millennial and I want to do everything on my mobile device. But when we hear that 30 to 50% of the clients are millennials, we know that their expectation is moving towards mobile. Now, they may not know how to craft all that. They may not know. I mean, the work that I'm showing on the screen right now this was really almost a 2-year thought exercise for me. How do I get everything on my mobile device? So what feels extremely simple to me today was totally in disarray for arguably the majority of my mobile existence. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it really does. And, I think we hear about people talk about millennials. We actually had a client not so long ago come to us and talk about the transition. And the way our client was talking about it was digital natives. He said these people everything is happening natively, digitally now, right? And so millennial is kind of a bad word. I think a lot of things get kind of piled in there, like you're saying. But I think it's the notion that people are going to be digital forward, and those digital natives are going to essentially make it table stakes that they can operate where they want to operate, which is kind of through this single pane of glass you're showing here. Right through the single pane of glass, I can get to anything in my personal financial world. It's a pretty powerful concept. I think a lot of people are really starting to get their heads around.
I think what I want our guests today to realize, though, this is not intuitive necessarily for their customers to be able to understand how to pull all this together, right? So yes, they want to be mobile. I believe that that's true, but it's not intuitive as to how they go about doing that. So if you really go to the next slide, Christy, we talk about this idea that the mobile is really the new front door to your practice. There was a time, Chris, when I would have articulated in all the education sessions I do that your website was the new front door, because, I know I don't look at, but there was a time in my career when our front door was actually the front door to our business. And then subsequent to the front door being the front door, driving down the street and pulling in, our website became the new front door to our business, and clients entered through that gateway. But now I believe what's happening is we've moved to the mobile devices, as we just showed. And then the question is, what is it that you should be doing from mobile? And I think the answer to that is pretty much everything today. So from a modern experience today allows you to have access to all the documents in your world with a thumb click. Allows you to video conference. No more of this phone call stuff. I mean, this is all video conference today, right? A mobile experience ought to be a good video conference, whether that's using Zoom or FaceTime or whatever it is. We happen to use Zoom in our practice, and we'll go through that a little bit. Payroll check it shouldn't be a PDF that gets sent to somebody. You shouldn't have to go log in somewhere to get a PDF of your paycheck. It should be on your mobile device. Very simply, very pretty, easy to get. You should get notified when you get paid by your employer. All your financial information, all your financial statements, tax returns, all that stuff should be at your thumb. And then this idea of messaging and sharing. We see the stats of how much hacking is going on via email. So we know that mobile at its core needs to be secure. And we need to create this secure sharing between accounting firms and their customers. So this is what an accounting firm's mobile experience for their customer ought to look like. Any thoughts on this, Chris?
Well, I like it. I think what I see here, Darren, is, in kind of the direction you're going, is that what you're saying is people, I think Steve Jobs might have said this, it's that people don't know what they want until they see it, right? And I think as you know, it's one of those deals where, we all as really trusted advisors, when we show people what things can be, it can really feel attractive, particularly, for that part of the audience that is wanting to be acting in the professional world like they are in the consumer experience, right? So this is resonating.
One of those things that you always do in your personal habits, I noticed, Chris, is when you get something, you do this all the time. You're like, that's it. And that's what we're talking about. When a client sees this, they do that. It's like, that's it. That's what I'm looking for. I don't know how to do it. I didn't know how to do it, but that's it. I've got it. So cool. Well, this is what we're trying to educate on today. How to get firms to teach their customers to have a great modern experience on a mobile device. So that's going to be the heart of the rest of our discussion. Before we move forward, I probably ought to have Christy push out the next polling question.
Great. Poll question number 2, how important is improving your customer experience? So from the firm to the client. And 3 answers here. Please pick one. Very important. You have a strategy and a budget already in place. 2, it's somewhat important. There's awareness of the need for a strategy and for a budget. Or 3, it's not important. Just simply hasn't been a priority for the firm. So let's go ahead and give that another 30 seconds or so for everybody to contribute, and we'll move forward.
Sort of funny, Chris. I just did a webinar for ADP's sort of an executive focus group, and I just finished it about an hour ago. But they asked the question around what's the most important thing from a firm perspective right now that ADP needs to help firms with. And the number one answer was creating a more modern customer experience. Of all things, over everything else, that's what the respondents said. The most important thing we can do right now is create a more modern customer experience.
We use ADP, and I can see that. I mean, I feel like, to a certain extent, I don't know if this is right or wrong, but as a consumer, I sometimes feel like payroll is payroll, right? So it's really going to come down to how can you make me feel about, in their case, something more like a commodity, because we've been doing payroll for a long time.
Right.
So on what lens do we differentiate, and maybe the customer, put them back in the center?
I think what's interesting is that every firm, the majority of firms there were thinking customer experience and how important it is. And they're starting to look at that from all the different vendors that they're actually working with. So
I think, Darren, you may have gone 2 in a row in terms of the webinars today. I think the poll results are in.
they are.
The winner is, not surprisingly, maybe we have some audience bias here because you all chose the show, but very important takes the #1 place. Someone important is not too far behind. I think it looks like people are moving. So a lot of people are moving. Some people are thinking about moving soon. And then nobody has this as not important. So this is actually, we did this survey a year and a half ago, and the results were very different. We had 1/4 of respondents in the not important, we're not thinking about it right now. So obviously this is picking up steam.
Yeah. All right.
Great. So let's move on, Darren. Let's go. Let's talk about the mobile tools that your clients should know about now. And I know you've got a bunch in practice, so looking forward to learning more about them.
Yeah. We just kind of showed the overall picture early on of what, how to run your personal life from your mobile device. But let's really dig in a second and talk about why some of these decisions are so important. So an example would be, Chris, for the longest time, our firm has done payroll for customers. And we use the tool to create paychecks. And that tool would take and it would put essentially a PDF in a portal of a paycheck stub so the client employee and the client could log in and see that PDF of a paycheck stub. I got to thinking, maybe a year and a half ago, there's nothing. Well, we were getting a lot of feedback. Well, I take that back. So we implemented Slack maybe a year and a half ago, and this is probably totally confusing, Chris, so tell me if it is. So we implemented Slack probably a year and a half ago. A part of our Slack implementation was a customer service channel in Slack. Slack's an internal communication tool. For those that are not familiar with Slack, it's an internal communication tool that businesses use. And so we use it inside of our accounting firm and inside of Rootworks. So one of the channels that we created in there was customer service. Every time a customer had a complaint or an issue, I asked our team to post that in the Slack channel for customer service. Because before, somebody would call in and say, I don't know how to log into my employee portal and get my paycheck stuff. Well, that stopped at our receptionist. They helped them log in. We got through that, but nobody else ever knew. By piping it into Slack, now all of a sudden everybody starts seeing, we're getting multiple people a day saying, wow, why does it have to be this hard to get my paycheck stuff? Why, I can't remember my password, all these things. And I'm like, man, we took something that was not exposed at all, and it became very transparent. And so I said, I got to create a more modern experience. So I started looking around at all the different solutions that were out there. And this happens to be ADP's solution. I'm not selling ADP right now. I'm just showing you how we went about making that decision. And that decision was largely driven by customer experience. What experience, you start by asking yourself, Chris, what experience would I expect to have in a modern way? And if I got a paycheck stub, what I would expect is to get a notification, hey, on my watch, I just got paid. Face ID, there's my stuff. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. It's funny because you asked me, and I think I'm a boiled frog. I'm used to, having to do, put a lot more work into these things because, I think it's just my generation is probably you know, tolerant of a little more friction. But I have a little sister, and she's 25 years old. And, it's funny, when I watch her, she will never call in, no matter what. She doesn't want to talk to anybody on the phone. So what she'll do instead is she'll just go out and go on the web and do research to find an alternative. And
Mm.
so, I think my guess is, I have no idea what the ratios are, but for every person that is calling in and getting help, I wonder what is underneath that. How many clients out there are there who are unhappy and aren't going to call in, are just going to go look for something else? Is it 1 in 2, 1 in 10, 5, 1 in 10? You know,
You,
I don't
you,
know. It's a thought experiment.
you mentioned the operative word here, Chris, and it's a word I'd like for everybody to be thinking about. It's friction, right? So everybody is becoming less and less tolerant of friction, it seems like. I certainly am in my personal life. I want to get rid of as much friction as I possibly can. And calling somebody on a number and having them support me during business hours is way too much friction anymore. So if we are feeling that way in our personal lives and our business lives, we've got to expect our customers are feeling that way too, don't you think?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, as we see the shift, we know that if 30, 50% are basically going to retire, they're going to be replaced by people almost certainly who are incredibly digitally savvy. They know what good customer experience is, and they're going to know whether or not they're getting it.
Yeah. So what we're talking about here really is reducing friction. You look at your payroll process and you say, how much friction is there? How do I get rid of friction? We can do the same thing as it relates to, I think QuickBooks is up next, Christy. So you think about QuickBooks. You talked about desktop, Chris. And I think about when we were using Enterprise in the company, and I carry a Mac, as you know. So I would be out, maybe working in a coffee shop, or I'm traveling or something, and I want to get access to our data. Well, I have to create a virtual private network. I have to hop on our VPN back to the office. I have to launch remote desktop on our server, and I have to launch QuickBooks Enterprise. We had a big data file, and it took a while for it to load just to find some basic information. I compare that to getting up in the morning and being able to click on an app on my phone and seeing how we did yesterday. Massive amounts of friction difference there, don't you think?
Absolutely. It's night and day.
Yeah. So again, that's what we're talking about. Just how do you think about removing friction? So I show you a couple other slides that will do that. Yeah, Christy, let's go on to the next one. Having Google Drive. I mentioned earlier, everything. This is a picture of my phone, Chris, and I have this thing called MDR file cabinet, which is where all my personal stuff lives: bank statements, bills that have been paid, CPE certificates, estate documents, all that stuff is on my device. And I can't tell you how many times I'm like, well, funny story. I had to renew my license plate in Sarasota, in Florida, Chris, about 2 weeks ago when I was down there. My license plate had run out in Florida. So I'm at the BMV, and the guy says, what insurance do you have on your car? Well, my assistant takes care of that. This was on a Saturday. I have no idea. And it crossed my mind, I can go into bills and payments and search insurance, and boom, it came right up, and there was my assistant had my insurance card scanned in there, right? And I just turned and showed the guy, that's the difference. That's taken all the friction out of me having to not be able to get my plate at the time. So you can kind of see what I mean.
So Darren, this is actually an interesting one, because I think what we're seeing here, this is actually a tool that's used personally and professionally,
Yep.
right? So the same pattern, the same knowledge base, it's very natural.
Absolutely. And it just again, I'm going to go back to the word friction, just continue to take friction out of the process. And personal and business are kind of converging, right? I use QuickBooks Online for my personal banking transactions as well as the business. So they've all kind of converged, and I get used to these simple, elegant, beautiful tools on a mobile device. I think that's what our customers want from us, Chris.
Yeah. You don't have to think. You just get what you want directly. It's really good.
All right, Christy, let's go on to the next. Lizio, I think, solves the same problem. So we know that there's this huge challenge, Chris, right now, with just spamming, hacking, email in general. And we're dealing in a world of personal information inside of our accounting firm. And I'm at the point inside of our firm where if somebody sends me anything with a document attached or a link, I'm like, I don't know about this. I mean, I got to pick up the phone and call and say, hey, did you send me this? Is this you, or is this somebody trying to get my personal information? I think what Lizio is doing is moving it, is taking friction away from that process by sending documents securely, as well as being able to communicate easily. What's your take on that one?
I think, the setting has changed, right? We used to sit across the desk from one another and we knew it was secure. It's like,
Yeah.
It's like almost like Get Smart. We had that, Cone of Silence. You could have a private conversation, everything's good. I think we moved away from that and everything's kind of moved swiftly into the digital world. There aren't as many human touches, and the human touches will probably be fewer and fewer in number as the customer base becomes more digitally oriented, right? So with that being the case, it feels like, and actually, I actually got I don't really get many encrypted emails. I got one yesterday and I used Gmail as a customer, right? And the encrypted email in Gmail had a massive red flag over it saying, we cannot scan this, we cannot do anything. It was warning me to not touch it, just like you're saying. So now you have to make the phone call in, or you're going to ignore the document. I'm not sure which one is worse, but it feels like in order to create a setting where everybody can feel comfortable, you have to have trust, right? And so I think the thing about Listio is you can trust it because it's only you and them. It's bringing you back to essentially a personal setting to do business where not a bunch of other people, bad actors in this case, can participate. So I think I think the setting part's really important there.
I was at, as you know, I'm on technology committee for publicly traded bank and also on their board. And we had our insurance carrier in yesterday morning talking about our cyber insurance policy. And he was presenting a bunch of statistics, but he essentially told the board yesterday, it's not a function of if, it's just when. Is it going to be this month? Is it going to be this year? It's going to be sometime that you're going to get hacked. You're going to get hit. Somebody in here is going to click on a link. You're going to get exposed. So it's not if, it's when. And I think accounting firms have to, one, move to a platform that's more secure, but also keep in mind, how do we take friction out of this process with communicating with customers? And we'll show everybody that here in a little bit. So
that's a good point.
Last piece of sort of showing some tools here is this idea of two-factor authentication. You want to talk about two-factor authentication a little bit, Chris? You want me to?
I think everybody's gotten so used to it, right, Darren? I think for me or for us, and thinking of how we think about it is, we all know that we walk around with our phones everywhere, right? And so somebody can sit there and try to hack passwords all day, but if you have two-factor authentication, it really changed everything away from knowing a code to something different, which is having physical possession of a device. And I think that is such an amazing thing, is this notion that we're never separated from our phones. If we lose them, that changes everything, and we can actually, we can protect ourselves in that environment. Whereas if we just lose a password, we don't really know that it got taken. And I keep on going back to the whole, who was it? I want to say Experian, Equifax, pardon me, the Equifax data breach, right? All that stuff, what they were after was all of our information for where did we live prior, where did we work prior, all that stuff got taken. And so I keep on thinking about even like secondary security questions, et cetera. A lot of that stuff, is marginally helpful after all these breaches. So I do think that this is where, things are going. What do you think, Darren?
Last four of your social security number, mother's maiden name, where you went to, your high school mascot, that stuff is all public knowledge at this point in time. It's really, we mandate two-factor authentication in the accounting firm on everything that we log into, whether we're getting a VPN connection to the office or anything, we mandate two-factor authentication. So as you think about mobile, you can think about, I think, being a bit more secure because you can require that two-factor authentication as well.
Right. Great point.
All right.
Okay, let's change gears a little bit again here. So I know, Darren, through your work with firms and also through your accounting practice, you're doing a lot to educate the end clients, right? I think having firms understand is one thing. I think obviously one of the biggest things is having confidence as a firm that end clients can follow along and can stick with the plot here as you move forward, right? So if you can spend some time with us, kind of walking us through how you're getting end clients on board.
Yeah, we've talked here a little bit about, what it means to run your financial life, a few tools that can help you do that. But if we don't turn this around and educate our clients on these topics, this is going to be for now. I mean, we're not going to get there with our customers. Our customers are not going to move along. So one of the things that we've developed in RootWorks specifically are tools that accounting firms can use to educate their customers. It's a part of taking on a new customer. It's a part of doing a webinar for your customer base or a prospecting webinar to teach the end user customer how to operate their business on a mobile device. Doesn't have to be complicated. I'll just walk you through a series of slides that we give accounting firms to do this very thing. A lot of accounting firms are not great at creating their own slide decks, making them look good and all that stuff. So we actually give them a deck and say, hey, just drop your firm logos down in the bottom corner. You might want to change that one out because that'll look kind of dumb if you don't change that out. But you can go to the master slide and pop your logo in there. And you start out by just educating your customer on how kind of like we started this webinar, Chris, how fast is this changing? What's your customer look like? Here's what percentages are saying. The majority of people spend the majority of their time in digital on a mobile platform. So we just start out by making that statement. Then from there, we move on. Go ahead, the next one, Kristen. And we talk about some mobile apps that are available and the things that you can now do. So we sit there and we say, let's have a discussion. Wouldn't it be nice if you could review your business and financial information, i.e. QuickBooks, on a mobile device? Wouldn't it be nice if you could capture receipts on the fly? So you're going through the gas station, you fill up on the company corporate card, you got that receipt that prints out, you take a quick picture of it, it now matches that up with the transaction that went through the corporate card so that you actually have a receipt tied to that. It's going to be interesting one of these days, Chris, a side note here, but in the old days, you were a CFO of a company, you got a bill in the door, a paper bill, you put that into the system, you printed a check off, you tore off the bottom third of that check, you attached it to that invoice and you put it in a file, right? The IRS come knocking, you pulled out the banker's box that had all those paid bills in it, you said, here's what I did. Today, we kind of live our lives sort of loose, if you will. I mean, I got corporate cards, I've got, things we're paying in online banking. Where's the receipts to all this stuff? There's going to come a time when the IRS may or may not come knocking, and they're going to say, well, show me, I see the digital transaction, show me the receipt. Where's it at? And nothing's going to match up. So this is really important as we talk to prospects, to educate them on how important it is. Because I bet the majority of customers think, that'll just show up on my bank statement, that'll be good enough.
Nobody wants to think of what happens if, right?
Right.
It's like most things, it's a matter of when, because people are going to get spot checked, that kind of thing. I always, what's interesting about this list here, Darren, is, why people are going to put off to tomorrow what they can, but if you can actually take the friction out, like you're saying, and make things happen in real time and make it just dead simple, instead of saying, oh, I'm just going to put this receipt in my bag and save it for later, instead of doing that, like, I don't want to put this in my bag, I don't want to carry this around, just take a picture of it and I'm done. Totally different mindset. If we can get them into real-time thinking, it takes all the work out.
Receipt Bank's the coolest tool. I didn't mention Receipt Bank earlier, but Receipt Bank, I go to the gas station, I take a picture of that receipt, it marries that up with that card transaction, and I'm done. I can go ahead and throw that receipt away, and it's all matched up, and things hook up and they're tied together. Awesome. So we educate clients on, back up one, Christy. We educate clients on that concept of receipts and invoices on the fly, how to pay bills, how to approve bills, how to get your paycheck. We talk to them about communicating with staff. how, you know, things like Slack, how to meet using video conferencing. So we kind of educate our customers on all the tools that are available. We haven't physically talked about a product yet in this in this presentation you give to your customers, but we're talking about capabilities. Wouldn't you like to review business and financial information on the fly, capture receipts, pay bills, get your pay? Wouldn't you like to do this? No client I've ever talked to, Chris, says, you know, no, I really just don't want to do any of that stuff. That's just not the way this goes. They're like, yeah, I would love to be able to do that. Can you show me how? Just so happens I can. So,
You know, you make me think of, Darren, here is leverage, right? We're all looking for leverage points to help our clients, right? Because if you make it easy for their employees to get things in, they get more leverage. They don't have to worry about things. They don't have to follow up as much. And I think that's what CFOs are always worried about. How do I get people to comply? You got to make it easy. So you can give them some leverage, but also for your firm, if it's right on their device and it's that simple, they don't call in. You're probably, I would imagine your Slack channel is a little bit quieter now on the customer request front than it was before.
absolutely. We are not getting the pushback on the customer service side. Once we started taking friction out, we saw the noise in that channel go way down. And that's how we knew that's how we believe that we're making customers' lives a little bit better. So we then go to the next slide, Christy, and we just kind of walk firms through, all right, QBO is where the world's moving. Here's what QBO does for you. Go on to the next one, Christy, if you would. You know, you want to take pictures of receipts and invoices on the fly. Here's a tool we use to make that happen. So again, we're just educating customers on the tools that they can use to accomplish these various actions. So yeah, Christy, we'll go on through another one. You know, pay bills online. How do you do that? And then also match those receipts up with Receipt Bank. Go on to bill.com. You know, if it's important to you as a customer to approve bills because somebody else is paying them, you know, we can use tools like bill.com that will synchronize with QBO. You know, if it's important to, you know, for your clients' employees to get notified when their paycheck's ready. We're just talking through each of these tools with our customers and educating them on what's available. By the time we get through this process, you know, we've introduced them to Slack, which chances are they don't know anything about Slack. Slack's usually one of those things that they really, go back one, Christy. Slack's one of those things that they typically really like, but they don't necessarily know about. I mean, Slack's doing a much better job of marketing, broadly speaking, but it's still somewhat of a niche. I mean, it's a big product now, Chris, but do you see broad adoption outside the technology world?
I think, you know, like you say, Darren, it really has started in tech and it's really spread by word of mouth. I think it's mostly one of those products that once you start using it, you really realize what it is. But I don't think we're seeing Slack TV commercials and all that kind of thing out there yet. Might not be too long for that, but I do think, as you're mentioning, it really does help people stay in touch in real time at an incredibly low cost. And when you have teams working on things, what's better than a team that actually communicates? So very powerful.
Yeah, so what we're really talking about is, yeah, you may use Slack internally. Let's educate your customers on why they should use Slack. Because if it's good for you, chances are, you know, it's pretty good for them. I don't know if you've noticed, Chris, but QBO, QuickBooks, you know, they don't even call QBO anymore. They just call it QuickBooks. QuickBooks now is all over the airways. I see it on CBS this morning almost every day. They're really advertising and becoming mainstream. Wise. Yeah, it is. And then lastly, I mean, a product like Zoom. I mean, show your prospect or your clients how to use a video conferencing tool that you use inside your firm. Maybe they want to use it for themselves, but also maybe they just want to interact with you that way. I mean, maybe you show them how to interact with you that way. Again, all we're doing here is just educating the customer, making them a better possible customer in the business model you've designed using modern tools. That's what we're after. So, all right, Christy, we have any after that? And then lastly, yeah, we'll talk about how to communicate with our clients using a secure communication method, and Lizzie over here just a little bit. So I think I did have one more. So do you use Mint, Chris?
I've used it off and on. Yeah.
I'm not personally a huge fan because I use QuickBooks Online. It's familiar to me, and I don't have all the noise. But we certainly educate our customers on the option with Mint. In one case, one hand it's free, and it has a great mobile tool. What I've noticed is my kids like it. They're in that in the 20-something, 30-something age range. They really enjoy Mint. I think I've just gone past Mint and I just use QBO.
Yeah, I think it's great for budgeting, which is I have a sporadic engagement with the budgeting process personally. So
yeah, I'm not good at that anymore. But again, all this really comes together. Whatever apps that you decide to use here, you want to come together and show the client how they can run their entire business from their mobile device.
I really liked, Darren, some of the things you're talking about there, and some things really resonated with me, kind of the first time here. But you were kind of talking about Receipt Bank and Bill.com and Chase and that kind of thing. I think what stands out there is that there are familiar patterns that you can start to use that kind of span. I was kind of thinking I use Chase. I got Chase credit card,
Yeah.
and if I can, getting in the habit of having, taking a picture of the receipt right there, having a match with Chase and getting or matched up in Receipt Bank and having something similar happening for other business flows, it's starting to span, kind of 1 foot in our personal purchasing behaviors that actually a lot of times are our business purchasing behaviors, right? Buying travel, et cetera, is happening on my personal card. I want to get into the business. Then having kind of the same thing when I get a business transaction on a card or a receipt or what have you, it kind of follows the same pathing. And I think that's really, really cool. And it shows really kind of how simple this can be, kind of going from consumer to professional again.
It's this convergence of business and individual and personal behaviors, right?
Mm-hmm.
From a personal perspective, I book my flights on my mobile device. I book my hotel reservations. I check in. That's how I want to live in my personal world. What makes me think that my customers don't want that kind of connection to all their financial stuff? And that's really what we're trying to educate them to. So,
I think it's great. Convergence is a great word. It's converging at the customer in the center of the bullseye, right? I think that's really where we go.
Chris, we probably need to do another polling question before we hop into a bit of a demo here.
Yeah. Let's talk about this is an interesting one. I think the question is, where does most of your growth come from? So again, this is a single choice, and this is something we ran before a couple of years ago. Kind of curious how this comes back, but number one, referrals. Number two, direct marketing. So sending out flyers and that kind of thing, or advertisements in local papers, et cetera. Social media. I know some of you out there are doing Google. I'm curious to see if that's taken over the number one slot here, or something else, right? What are you guys doing to grow? And I think about this particularly within the context of, hey, 30 to 50% of our baby boomers retire in a couple of years. That's a significant quantity. How do we get those back? Right? How do you fill the business up?
I had a meeting this morning, Chris, with a business incubator, if you will. It's a new entity here, somewhat new in Bloomington. It's about 20,000 square feet, and it's bringing all kinds of entrepreneurs in there. There's some co-work component of that, but there's also some companies, having permanent space in there, but it's all tech driven. Mm-hmm. So I met with them this morning, and one of the things we're going to do is we being Root Advisors, go do presentations on this whole idea of going mobile and how to manage your personal and business financial lives all on your mobile device. They have about 450 companies that are a part of this center. We're going to become the go-to place for anybody that wants to be reasonably tech savvy in our community. So that's where this education piece can be super powerful.
I think it's fantastic. I think, I spent some time with the people at Cambridge Innovation Center, and they have offices all over the place. And some people are everybody's trying to get in there. Some people are getting little satellite offices they're putting in there to have somebody sitting, anyway, I think it's pretty fantastic. We have our results.
This is pretty interesting because You know, 95%, is that what you see, Chris?
Yeah.
I would have guessed that as well. But my question is, what are we doing to encourage more of that? What are we doing to encourage, to teach our referral sources what makes us different? I totally agree with the findings that that's where our business comes from, but what are we doing as an outreach to make that even better?
Absolutely. It goes back to, there's an old book I think a lot of people probably read called Raving Fans. How do you create raving fans? You're giving them unexpected delights as you go along. I mean, obviously hard work is always at the center, but it's the unexpected delights that create this experience that is, happiness is, you know, expectation minus reality, right? So, or pardon me, reality minus expectation, I had that backwards. But if we can actually give them a reality that's more than what they think, and I think, Darren, you've done a great job kind of going through, how do you lead the customers to, you know, think about things differently, which ultimately leads to a better experience for them, which in turn we hope would help drive that flywheel of customer referral.
There's this whole piece, Chris, that is a part of customer experience that is, I would say, three components, and you'll hop into this a little bit more deeply, but we're going to talk a little bit about how Lizio makes for a better customer experience as well. And there's really three things. How do I message back and forth with customers and them with me in a more secure way so we feel trusted and private? So that's one piece. Another piece is, how do I take the friction out of them getting documents that I share with them or they share with me? You know, friction like, oh, I'm going to go to a portal, I'm going to log in, I'm going to try to find the folder that has a document in it, or am I just going to get that on my mobile device where I can filter that down real quick and with a click of a button have access to my tax return or anything else? And then lastly, how can I sign things like an engagement letter without having to either sign it and mail it back, or if the firm actually sends it to the client via a tool like DocuSign, can I really trust that that link in that email is actually from DocuSign? So we're going to talk about how to make that client experience a little bit better by taking a lot of the friction out. So with that, Chris, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you kind of take us from here.
Okay, that sounds great, Darren. Thank you. And while we're kind of changing gears here a little bit, you know, one of the things is with regard to expectations and reality, I'm actually really pleased with Verizon today on my mobile device because it's held up. We've been doing all of this. I hope it holds up through the illustrations coming up here. So let's see, you should be able to see my my screen now, and this is Lizio from a firm's perspective. This is firm's view. So Darren, to your points, I think we want to create a trusted environment, and the first thing we want to do is really kind of show firms and set with firm employees that this is something that they can succeed with because it's not a big stretch, right? What I mean by that is the pattern should be recognizable. If we look at this, we have an inbox. Everybody knows what an inbox. Inbox has me and recipients talking about things that have a subject and content, and we can create messages here. If we click on it, it'll expand just like it would in email. Also, we have a concept here, which is really for professional service firms, which we have tasks. So are we getting things done when we need to get them done? And bringing it out of email where things kind of get lost in email, right? In customer service, if something gets lost in email, that's a terrible customer touch. What we're trying to say is, look, a right client experience has visibility and transparency into things that must get done. And that might be a little bit separate from just messages going back and forth talking about the weather. So let's kind of go back and show you how this works. So just very briefly, creating a message is very simple. I can send something to our client, and we'll use Christine Client here. And she's associated with the account called Tally. And I can say, meet on, it's Wednesday today, meet on Thursday. I can visit your office. So super simple to get a message out, right? What'll happen is this will work just as we would expect, but message goes out and the client will get a message, and you can see a notification come out right up here. So the client's going to get a notification right to their phone. And when we talk to a lot of our clients, a lot of them have staff or even themselves who are texting back and forth with clients because clients want to be messaged. They want to have a fast way to get back and forth with clients, right? Or with the firms. So if I go ahead and refresh this, it'll say Chris Admin. There it is. I can visit your office. I want to hit attachments, so I just want to say fantastic. See you at, let's say just see you at noon. So it's so easy. It's following a pattern that everybody knows. Get a notification just like a text message and send something back. So that we think is a great customer experience. It requires no new learning, right? The pattern is established. Another thing we can do, and Darren, you mentioned engagement letters. Should we go there now?
Sure.
Let's go and go to tasks. So I want to go ahead and get a signature, and I'm gonna get it for account. Let's do Tally here, and our contact will be let's do Christine again, and document type engagement letter.
I don't know if your screen's frozen. Oh, there it goes. Okay.
Is it coming through? Okay, it's showing on my side, but it might be a little bit slower on the display. So let me know if it's not working. And I'll be the I'll be the select partner on this. So what we're going to do is we're going to say this is a engagement letter for a fixed fee engagement for bookkeeping, and I'll make a price $9.95, and this is going out to Christine. So what we can do is we can see the engagement letter here, and obviously I don't want to spend too much time on this, but this is all the text is already ready to go. You can have as many templates as you want. You can edit every single thing in here, but just for quick purposes, looking forward to working with you. And we can go ahead and send that out. And this is really about the client side of things. So there's a thing for review it one more time, see your signature, we'll save it, and then we'll go ahead and send it out. So when we think about this from a client perspective, again, I'll come out here to our phone. When it comes through, it'll zap us. There it is, preview or review and sign engagement letter. What we're doing here, Darren, is we're saying, okay, the client has something to do, right? They can easily identify it. They can click on it. They got a notification right there. They can click on it, and we make it really simple. Review and sign right here, right? I tap on that. They can see everything, and I know this will be small on your screens, but for example, the $9.95 we put in, that's sitting right there, and the monthly fees, etc. Client can review everything on their mobile phone. They can agree to it and mark it complete. Super simple experience.
I want to note on this is if I had got that via DocuSign, it would have been in my inbox, and I've been worried about whether somebody is trying to spoof me or if it's real. And that's what we're really talking about. Yes, you can sign a document electronically using other tools, but the question is that's an email that is highly spoofed, and that's what worries me, Chris. And that's why I like being in a platform.
I think absolutely. I think people know, or people are getting to know, that patterns are really powerful. And if we have a pattern of getting a bunch of things in DocuSign, when we get something that looks like DocuSign, even if it might not be from them, it can say DocuSign without an I, right? We're not going to necessarily notice that. It can look exactly like it. We're just out of habit. We're going to click the sign here to open the doc. That might not be a doc. It might be a malicious attack, right? So I think that pattern is really, really important. I think the other thing you mentioned, Darren, is the idea of convergence. So, now instead of having to go to DocuSign, because now I have some documents or some of the stuff I need to go look for in DocuSign later, that's not a great client experience. Some stuff's in email, some stuff's in DocuSign, maybe some stuff's in share file, right? What if we said, okay, I just signed that here. Great, I've got that. What if we were to say, you know what, when I work with, let's say you, Darren, I know as a client that everything I've ever done with you is all here, and I can get access to it from my mobile device. So if I look at this, I have a home, I have an inbox where I can see all the messages, current and past. I have tasks, I can see all the tasks we've gone through, current and past. I might have multiple accounts with you, maybe my personal taxes as well as my business. Then I have files. So let's go ahead and dive into files just to kind of give you a sense. But what will happen here is I can come in here and see everything that you and I have ever exchanged. And let's say I want to quickly get to, let's say tax returns. I'm gonna go ahead and click on a filter. I want to show tax returns from 17 and 18. And when I do this, what'll happen is instead of getting a long list of results or having to go dive through a bunch of folders, I can see I got my forms K1, I've got my tax return from 18 and my tax return from 17. And it's all here.
If you think about that just for a second, so the alternative to that's a portal somewhere, right? And let's examine portals a couple of different ways. Let's say it's something like a share file. And I'm not going to pick on them. I'm just going to use them as an example. what typically happens is there's an email that gets triggered out to the client that says, hey, you have something in your portal at ShareFile. Well, that's a highly spoofed link. I'm not sure whether I should click on that or not, right? So that's one type of portal where there's a link in an email that takes you out somewhere. The other type is, I want you to go to my firm's website. I want you to log in. I want you to go find this document.
Mm-hmm.
You get the document in any of these models, but there's a lot of friction in some of them. There's not a lot of friction in the other. So what we're really talking about is making this almost frictionless. You've got your phone, you go to files, you filter real quick, and you have a copy of your tax return. You're not worried about links, and you're not worrying about somebody forgetting their passwords and all that stuff.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. When I think about this with my own personal experience, and I think about this when I bring my wife into the story, I know that a lot of the stuff I've done in the past, which might be germane for getting a home loan later or something like that, it's all kind of scattered across multiple different places, right?
Yeah.
And so my wife has to go look through my email and then figure out what's in DocuSign, what's in ShareFile, what's everywhere else. It's hard enough for me to do it. I can't imagine her being incredibly successful doing it either. So we think about, kind of going back to that single pane of glass or single app experience where all the communication, all the history converges in one place. That, at least for me, it feels like a complete experience.
Yeah.
Right. It feels like I have a lot more control over this than I did before.
So I know, Chris, we're out of time. I think we're straight up 3 o'clock Eastern time, but I think probably, did we want to do one last polling question, or do you think we're good?
I think we're in pretty good shape. One person had a question about engagement letters. We can touch on real quick. We have actually quite a few questions here, but let me go through just one, and then we'll get back to respond to everybody after here. Do we have to upload engagement letters one at a time, or can we generate multiple engagement letters at once? We do have a bulk feature for that. So that's what Tom.
1040s all at one time if you want to.
There you go. So yeah, but that was great. I think Darren, I'd like to thank you for taking a bunch of your time today to make this happen. And for anybody out there who has follow-up questions, et cetera, we will be available. I think Christy can share contact information in case anybody wants to reach out. But hope this was really helpful for everybody. And we want to thank you all for joining us today.
Great. Thanks, Chris. And thank you, everybody, for attending. Christy, thanks for running the slides for us today.
Wonderful. Cheers.
Right. Thanks.